Hello, everybody, and welcome to this SHERPA project interview. My name is Marielle Lazarovici. I am a program and research assistant at the European Business Summits, and I work on SHERPA's advocacy campaign as part of EBS's Research Hub. So I am very happy to be joined here today by our project coordinator, Bernd Stahl, and by MEP Susana Solis Perez, who is a member of SHERPA's stakeholder board. So Susana, over to you. Maybe you can start by presenting your work in the Committee on Artificial Intelligence in a Digital Age in the European Parliament.
Our main mandate in this committee is to take an horizontal approach and a long-term perspective of the future impact of artificial intelligence in our economy, in our society. I would say to look at AI from a 2030 angle to help define how these key technologies for European competitiveness will evolve in the next decade. And in this regard, the contributions and recommendations of the SHERPA project, raising awareness on ethics and human rights issues, are very valuable. I am also very happy to be a member of SHERPA stakeholder board and contribute to the discussions.
Thank you very much, Susana. We are, of course, also delighted to have you with us as a member of the stakeholder board, and your contribution has been outstanding and very important to us. For those people who are watching this video now who don't know what SHERPA is, we are an EU project that looks at the ethical and human rights aspects of big data and artificial intelligence. And we've been doing a number of investigations. So we've done case studies, scenarios. We've looked at how AI and big data technologies are currently playing out in reality, what we can expect of them. We've looked at particularly the ethical and human rights aspects, and we are trying to, or we have developed a set of recommendations on how to deal with them. So we are therefore also doubly delighted to have Susana here as a policymaker who's working on AI. And the discussion today is going to be around some of the aspects of how can we make sure that AI brings the societal benefit it promises, and that possible downsides and risks can be mitigated. So back to you, Susana. Can you give us an overview of what you think are the key challenges that AI raises, and in what way are they relevant to policymakers?
I personally believe there are three main areas that as policymakers we should take into account. The first is that we must know that, like any technology, artificial intelligence has very positive aspects and also carries some high risks. And inappropriate use of AI can lead to undesirable results with serious consequences, for example, on equal opportunities or on the health of citizens. So we need to make sure that we identify those risks and propose solutions for their management. And to do this, we need a suitable regulatory framework that ensure AI systems are safe and do not violate fundamental rights. And we also need to find the balance. Regulation must be flexible and open enough to ensure innovation in AI, while, as I mentioned, respecting these ethical obligations. And secondly, only establishing a regulatory framework will not be enough to make Europe a world leader in AI. We need a different kind of impulse to foster its development. Initiatives such as establishing a data-based economy or setting up incentives for research and development in this field will be essential in order to boost European leadership. And in this regard, we have also to address the lack of investments and AI talent shortage in Europe. And last but not least, there is a serious gender gap in women's participation in STEM areas, including artificial intelligence. And if we do not manage to close this gap, in addition to accepting an inequality that we believe it's unfair, we will be losing competitiveness and squandering the talent of those women. So those are, for me, the main points we need to address.
Okay. You mentioned the fact that a regulatory framework is not sufficient, but that seems to suggest that a regulatory framework is part of the overall solution. And we know, of course, that the European Union is working on such a framework. What do you think are the most important aspects of that? So what needs regulation, and in what way should it be regulated?
Okay, I think the answer is simple, because AI is a technology that, as I mentioned, has very positive aspects, but it carries certain risks that need to be taken into account. And these risks can, depending on the case, affect fundamental rights. That's why we need this framework. And for me, this regulatory framework should include, first, a good definition of the scope of the regulation. I think it is essential that we refine the definition of high-risk areas, which in the end will be those applications that have greater regulatory obligations. We need mechanisms to ensure confidence in AI. We must be able to understand and interpret how algorithms work and how, through their application, results are obtained. And in this way, it will be possible to demand corrective measures in case of undesired effects. And to ensure trust, we also need accountability mechanisms. Record keeping and conditions for human oversight is highly needed. And of course, we need to have a governance systems and mechanisms to enforce regulatory provisions. And I think the European Artificial Intelligence Agency is a good proposal, no? To coordinate actions of member states and to avoid fragmentations. And last but not least, also it is necessary to establish clauses so that the objectives of the regulation are met without placing an excessive burden on, for example, our SMEs. This is important that we have into account this balance.
Okay, thank you. A different set of recommendations that SHERPA has put forward refers to education. So we've said that education needs to underpin the way we deal with AI in Europe and elsewhere, of course, as well. So my first question would be, do you agree with that? And in what way do you agree or disagree with that? So what role should education play in this space?
I think education is a very important role. I think it's crucial, and I think it should encompass all different stakeholders involved in the different life cycle of AI systems. If we look at it from the perspective of the developers, prior knowledge, for example, of ethical aspects and the consequences of that inappropriate use can have for citizens is key. If developers are aware of the risk, it is very likely that from the very beginning of they will do so in a way that avoids possible unwanted ethical impacts. But we have to look at from the citizen's point of view, because it is also essential to have a basic education that allows citizens to be informed and aware of how artificial intelligence can affect our daily lives, of the rights we have in the event of abuse or damage, and of the rights we are entitled to. So it is essential to be sure that unwanted ethical effects do not occur, and if they do, what should be done to report them. So this type of education will be increasingly important as we increasingly interact with application of artificial intelligence. So basic education on AI should be promoted among society to ensure that the population has the essential knowledge, for it's crucial, as I mentioned.
Okay, thank you. And my last question brings in a different concept, one that is discussed somewhere on the European level, which is called ethics by design, which is something that has been promoted as a way of allowing developers and deployers to deal with ethical issues of technology, in particular of AI. I was wondering, is that a discourse you're familiar with, and where do you think this might sit in the overall scheme of ethics in AI?
Yes, I'm very convinced that we should implement the ethics by design methodology. This kind of approach has been very successful in some sectors, such as the development of medical devices. And in the end, the implementation of an ethics by design methodology is closely linked to the training of developers and in ethical aspects. And if they are properly trained from the very moment of defining the specifications of a given application, they will be taking into account the required ethical aspects. So for me, it's critical. And it also means that we need to have multidisciplinary teamworks, not only with engineers, but we should also include on the development of a technology, psychologists, sociologists, philosophers. So we need to have this multidisciplinary work with different overviews and points of views. It's essential.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Those were the questions I wanted to ask. The last word is yours. If you want to send a message to the world out there in terms of ethics in AI, what would be your 30-second elevator pitch? What's the most important thing we should do right now?
Now, I think artificial intelligence is going to be one of the pillars of our economy, of the European economy, and establish a regulatory framework that ensures security and guarantees rights in the use of these applications is very challenging. And for this, we need the help of civil society, organizations, and experts working in the field. And just, I would like to congratulate SHERPA for its work and for its contribution in a decisive way to make us aware of the practical implications of artificial intelligence and the existing regulatory needs. So I encourage you to continue working and collaborating with us.
Thank you very much.